That familiar sound means that we are certainly into fall on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. Juan Cotto touching bases with you from the Columbia City Theater here on Rainier Avenue, 4916 Rainier Avenue to be exact. And we are continuing the community election connection on your community radio station and on your show, Juan on Rainier. Did you and I come up with that, Daniel? Did we make up that name, or did somebody kind of the consulting company that we paid several $1,000s to come up with that? That's right. I think you did come up with that. I owe you for that. And obviously, fall here brings in a variety of different things, and one of the most important things that we always talk about is that coming up this month, or actually early next month, there is an election coming up. We encourage all of you to register to vote and to vote in that election. If you have missed anything, Tony B and Daniel and I have done it, and a number of us have done it. I also put some of the other shows in here. We've done it for you. Go through the catalog of stuff on the Community Election Connection, and you will find interviews. You will find a variety of different debates. We've had we had debates so long ago that people are now catching up with them. They're talking about they saw these candidates running for these local offices on this space. And we did that back in early September. So it's an opportunity to see how the candidates maybe have changed their positions. But all of that's irrelevant if you're not going to go ahead and take your ballot to the ballot box. So we encourage you to do that. We always have encouraged you to do that. We think that's such an important part of the democratic process. Today, I have a guy who I've been chasing down a little bit. He is a person that I respect and admire, and anyone who has his story. Also a former baseball player, but currently, as we work to bring on a variety of different voices and a variety of different political perspectives, and last month we had a conversation with Shama Sawant, who really represents one political perspective that we really tried to delve in and find out more about and learn where she got so passionate about that. And it was a fantastic program. A number of people have texted me and emailed me in regards to how that was. If you haven't had a chance at that, we hope you do that as well. And today we have a person who, man, you are a busy brother. I look at your Facebook page, and man, you are all over the state of Washington, and you're doing two things. You are a state representative, and you are the chair of the King County Republican Party, which means that your telephone must be full of happy talk. This is Jim Walsh. Welcome to Juan on Rainier.
Good to see you, Juan.
Tell us about that a little bit. I mean, how did you get pulled into doing both?
That's a great question. I started involved in local politics. I live in Aberdeen, in Grays Harbor, and got involved there, really trying to help the economy. It's been down for a while, hit hard by the spotted owl and the changes in the wood products and timber industry. A lot of commercial fishing, a lot of industrial stuff. That's been down. And I was trying to find ways to help bring it back up. And I was looking for somebody else to run for the state legislature down there. And after about the 8th person said, "Why are you talking to me? You ought to be running." I ran in 2016, and the 19th district that I represent in Olympia had been a sort of lunch bucket Democrat district for decades. Hadn't elected a Republican in a long time. And I just worked an old-fashioned shoe leather campaign. I mean, lots of door knocking, lots of city council meetings, lots of school board meetings. And I was elected. And it was a bit of a shock. Some people thought it was a fluke, but it was a change. And that it was not a fluke. I've been reelected multiple times now, always with a larger margin of victory. And the district has turned. It is completely red now, and represented entirely by not just Republicans, but fairly conservative, kind of libertarian Republicans. And that goes for the legislative seats in that district. That goes for the county commissions in that area. They've largely turned much more conservative than they used to be. And the district is some or all of 6 counties, so it touches a lot of counties, and so I'm involved a lot in local politics there. And then about 2.5 years ago, the chair of the state Republican Party announced, somewhat surprisingly, he was stepping down, and there's been a lot of, frankly, division and a lot of frustration in the Republican Party in this state. So I stepped in to try to bring the factions back together again, and that's been a process, still happening, but we're more unified than we've been in a long time, and that's good. I think you're seeing us gain some traction in local races, primarily a lot of school board races around the state. And I think you're going to see us picking up some seats in the legislature, both in a couple of the special elections happening right now. There are a number of legislative special elections happening in 2025. That's unusual. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 most times, but this year there are like 5, 6, I think. So involved in a couple of those, and then the midterms next year should be very interesting.
Chat with you about. I'm going to come back to you about party politics, but I want to ask you about an incident that occurred now a few weeks ago. The horrific tragedy that occurred at Southern Utah State University, and this for lack of a better term, assassination.
Oh, it was an assassination. Charlie Kirk. Yeah.
I first of all, what were your thoughts when you first saw that, and someone who had been speaking, and I felt sort of breaking down barriers and really raising awareness of not only the platform, but in a real, how would I mean, he was speaking out and really giving people a platform to have conversation about this. Come debate me, come talk to me. And for this to happen, what were your thoughts, and what first went through your mind?
A lot. I mean, Charlie Kirk was bigger than politics. I mean, most of his obituaries, most of the media around that shooting that took place focused on his political elements, but he was bigger than politics. I mean, there's a famous saying that Andrew Breitbart, another conservative political good troublemaker, used to say that politics is downstream of culture. And Breitbart wanted to operate at the cultural level to influence, as a result, our politics. And I think Charlie Kirk was the same way. He operated more at a cultural level. Anybody who's watched any of his videos knows, I mean, he was a devoutly religious man. He was a Christian and a true believer. And his faith informed his positions as much as his political philosophy did. And I think he resonated with younger people because he was so straightforward. He was so honest and open in what he believed, and certain. I mean, he was a debater in the old style. Interesting thing about Kirk, he was not formally educated. He didn't have a college degree, which was surprising. Now, he had taken courses and things, but famously, at one point he went over to England and debated at the Oxford Union, where you wear like a white tie and tails type thing, and they do it the old-fashioned way. And he absolutely cleaned their clocks back there. He was absolutely on point, debating about things like not just politics the way we think of it, not tax policy and regulatory issues, talking about philosophy and what is it to be a human, and what is it to be a member of a family, a father, a mother, a brother, and how does that inform how we should treat one another and how we should behave in a community and in a nation. And he was very analytic, and he did very well there in sort of the cradle of parliamentary debate. He did very well. It was a true tragedy what happened, and I think it has motivated people who were a little apathetic and a little burned out, a little sort of unmotivated to get involved in voting, I think it's motivating them. We'll see. I mean, we haven't had an election yet since that shooting in Utah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
What do you think it says for public discourse? I mean, we all have had a feeling that has been getting worse and worse. I mean, from families being kicked out of dinner tables. I famously told the story of my college roommate Dave Ashcraft, he was a conservative, still is conservative, and various points of our relationship we never had violent arguments with each other. We would sit up all night in our room and we would talk and really have good conversation. And I think we learned a lot from each other. And at various points of our life, as you do when you have friends for 20 and 30 years, we have been at all of our events together, and we've developed a lifelong relationship. We're brothers. I would never kick him out of my house for a political conversation, but I hear this from people, and it seems like people's political views, even within my own family, two of my nephews are having problems right now stemming from politics. And I'm wondering what makes politics that emotional, that people create this barrier where we don't even want to speak to each other.
Oh, it's so hard to unpack that one. I mean, there's so much at play. I mean, social media is part of it. There is a siloing that is happening with people. It's in the nature of modern media, electronic media. If you choose, you can live a life where you only see and hear the things that an algorithm has decided is you, right? So you only see the style of clothes that you like. You only hear the politics you like. You only hear the music that you like. And I think that siloing is unfortunate. But some of it's deeper than that. I mean, I believe some of it's Nietzsche. I mean, when people lose their religious faith, whatever that faith may be, they look for other gods. And for a lot of people, they have left any kind of formal religious practice, and politics becomes their religion. And I think that's really unfortunate. Back to Breitbart, politics is not supposed to be the driving interest in your life. It's supposed to be one of several interests that you have. And I think too many people have lost faith or lost a strong philosophic foundation, self-identity. And if you don't have religious faith and you don't have a strong philosophical notion of who you are, you look for cheaper versions. And politics will offer you a system of belief. And some people cling to that too much.
You brought up the social media part of it. And I think the social media part really impacts it, certainly. And I think that everyone has a phone, everyone has a computer. It seems everyone not only has an opinion, but everyone is an expert. I have a friend of mine, and he was asking me about a complex public policy issue. And I said, when we studied this in graduate school, this is what I was thinking. And he said, I don't care that you went to graduate school. I just want to hear what you're thinking of. And I'm sitting here like, anytime you vaguely try to mention that you might even come close to having a better perspective or of a different perspective, and albeit an educated perspective, people tend to want to shut you off. And I find that weird. What can we do? I shouldn't say I find it. I find it human now. I find it human. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But here's the deal. Let me ask you this. What do you think we can do to have a more civil conversation? Or do you feel that our communities, the way they're currently set up, can we start to have a more civil conversation? Or is this right now the best we're going to get?
Well, this right now is not the best we're going to get. But I think this right now is not as bad as it seems. I mean, if it bleeds, it leads. The mainstream media will always encourage the most confrontational, divisive exchanges because they make for clicks and eyeballs. I think there are civil conversations going on all over the place. They just don't get in the news. And I think that the Charlie Kirk assassination was a kind of reminder to people that we need to, they say touch grass. You need to get off your phone. You need to get off your computer. You need to go down and have a coffee at the corner shop and just be real. One of the things that I say to young Republicans in Washington State is just show up and be normal. I mean, there's so much to that. Just talk to people in a normal way and be interested in what's happening in your neighborhood.
Showing up and being normal. That is sometimes that can be a challenge, especially on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we have so much going on during this time of year. I like to say we are politicking. We are politicking here at Rainier Avenue Radio. We've got these city council candidates, and we have these. This is actually a big mayoral candidates. I can call it a debate, a mayoral race going on here in the city of Seattle, and that's brought out some very, very interesting people for the incumbent Bruce Harrell and the challenger Katie Wilson, and that has brought up some really interesting conversations. And one of those are. What we'd like to tell people to do is, if you haven't had a chance to see some of those debates, if you haven't had a chance to see some of the things that we do here on Rainier Avenue Radio, please take the time to do that. I'm sure they are categorized and they're on our YouTube and Instagram. You can hear the candidates themselves as we're coming up on the election here in November. So please take the time to do that. And oh, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to register to vote, that it would be a good idea to do that right now as well. Jim, June 29th. 2011 is a day that resonates in my life. I was at my job at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. I get a couple of broken calls from my wife, kind of almost in a frantic situation. And I pick up the phone and she says, "You need to come out to Virginia fast. Something's happened in Salvador." I get off the plane, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, who normally are not together, they were there to greet me at the airport to tell me that my son was killed in a very, very tragic accident. And only, it seems like those of us who have gone through those types of tragedies understand what you have to go to build your life, to build your family. I know that you have experienced a tragic incident with your wife. And I just want to know, what were the first steps that you did to get your life back together? I know that I had to. I certainly am. I grew up in the Catholic faith. I consider myself a Catholic and Christian. I will be at the front row of the Toby Back concert here on February the 27th. And my faith and what I learned about my faith and what people have told me that they have learned. I've had friends of mine who are atheists and have come up and said, "You know something, I don't believe in God, but looking at you and seeing how you've handled this, I know I need to believe in something." And I am just wondering what you went through, what some of the things that you had to utilize to pull yourself through that situation. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So much, Juan. It was about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. My wife, Jamie, was killed in a car accident. The last thing I said to her, she was leaving the house to go to, she was an architect, was leaving the house to go to a meeting with a client for a design project. And I said, "Have a productive meeting." And she said, "Okay, thanks." If I had known that that was the last thing I was going to say to my wife, I would have said, "I love you," or something more.
Yeah, it's so interesting. After the Charlie Kirk assassination, it really resonated to me that 2 young children and a wife aren't going to have their father home anymore.
That's right.
And I should know better. I should be doing this every day anyway. But I hug the kids, I hug Sarah, and I tell them I love them before they go out the door.
And I've been much more like that with we have 5 children. I've been much more like that with each of them since. My wife and I are also Catholic. We are pre-Vatican II Catholics. We're Latin Catholics.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that brought us together. We were married for 33 years. It was a good marriage. I mean, every marriage has its moments, but I loved her dearly, and it was like a lightning bolt. I mean, it was a shock. I wanted to see her. The coroner was recommending not. It was a pretty bad accident, but I wanted to see her, and I did. My oldest son went with me, and we examined, and I wanted to be sure. The things that take you are elemental. They're not logical. I wanted to make sure it was really her, and not there hadn't been some horrible confusion or something. Not entirely rational, but it was what drove me in those hours. And as I know the days after were kind of a blur. I mean,
it's amazing.
You're in shock, and
it's like you're watching a movie and you're in it. I mean, I was like, how is this going on? I'm watching myself like drive. It's so hard to comprehend.
It is, and they'll tell you you really shouldn't try too hard. You need to just kind of roll with it, and grief is a strange thing. I mean, it doesn't come in the proper order you necessarily expect. It hits you at odd moments. You're cool as a cucumber in some of it, and then you kind of lose it in other elements. It's very. You just have to understand you're a human. We're humans. This is a thing, and you just have to kind of bend with it and roll with it. And 3 years later, I mean, I still think about her every day, and I don't entirely understand how this could have happened. I mean, I understand the physics of it, of course. I understand the math of it, and the hard logic of it. But what would have been different if I'd been able to delay her a few minutes? Would it have been different?
It's so interesting you say that you wanted to see her. My last hug of Salvador, we were at the Starbucks at SeaTac Airport just before they were going, and he was playing with my collar and hugging onto me. Again, I can just feel it. And then Sarah, my mother-in-law, and my son Clemente, they put him on the plane. And so when they asked me if I wanted to see him in Virginia, and then when they asked me when I wanted to see you here, I said no. I said I always wanted to have that looking into his eyes, to be like, because I hear you. I mean, I know exactly. I mean, and they asked you, I didn't. That was what I wanted my last memory to be.
Good for you.
See him. What? How do you think that this impacted you in regards to your work as a public official?
Well, I mean, it makes you think about everything in a new perspective. Things that seem really big to you before don't seem quite so big anymore. But she was a big supporter, and she loved politics. She'd served on the school board locally for a couple of terms, but she was very much she was sort of an old school woman. I mean, she supported me, and she wanted me to do more and do more. I was not the chair of the state Republican Party at that point when her accident happened and she died. So that came a little bit after, and people said, "Well, are you ready for this?" And I'm like, "Ready." And she's like on my shoulder pushing me. On these things change you, and it made me more dedicated to trying to fix Washington. I mean, this is such a beautiful place in the world. I really believe that with everything in me, and we are blessed to live in this place. And for generations, we ran a good ship of state in Washington that delivered a good quality of life for everybody who lived here, basically, almost everybody. And we've always had a bit of a progressive vibe in our state. That's fair, but a lot of it in the older decades was more of a libertarian progressive. It was sort of a leave me alone. Let's pave the roads, let's make things work, but like, get out of my hair, get out of my home, let me live my life, let me do my thing. And we need to get back to that. And we're not doing a good enough job of the simple stuff, of paving the roads and keeping the bridges and buying ferry boats and that kind of thing. We're not doing that stuff well enough, and we're getting into people's business too much and telling them how to live. And so Jamie's death just made me sort of redoubled in my commitment to trying to fix Washington.
How tell us about the relationship you have with your kids? Because I know with Clemente and my daughter Araceli, it certainly, like you said, it changes you. I mean, you see your life differently, but you also see their hopes and dreams and goals that they're trying to achieve. And as a father, how have you been able to work to ensure that you're going through this with them?
Sure. It brought us together, of course. Pretty good kids. The oldest is 34 and the youngest is just turning 20. So 5 and about a 14-year spread. The older couple of them are well launched. My oldest daughter owns a construction company in the Yakima area. Oldest boy is a pilot for the Coast Guard, a rescue helicopter pilot. Middle girl works for a real estate development company. And then the two younger ones are still in school. Number 4 is at law school at UW. And number 5, the baby, goes to Fordham back in New York City for college.
7 blocks of granite.
There you go. There you go.
Vince Lombardi.
He grew up in the same house in the same place in Aberdeen, Washington. And when I said, well, what do you want to do for next after high school? He's like, well, I want to go to college and I want to go back to the East Coast. I want to see another part of the world. And I mean, there's nothing more back East Coast than New York City. So that's where he wanted to go.
Well, what's better than being a father?
Not much. It's the best thing we do.
The best thing we do on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We are here with Republican State Party Chair and legislator out of the 19th District.
Correct.
Yes. On your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We are pumping up the community election connection. Am I coming up on the time? Hey, we are at a profit center break here on your community radio station. So Daniel's going to cut us off, but we will come back in 3 minutes with Jim Walsh. Daniel?
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
Are your kids eligible for or enrolled in Apple Health Medicaid insurance? Bring them to a free dental clinic in Skyway this fall. Public Health Seattle and King County is hosting free dental clinics for kids 12 and under at the Skyway Resource Center, one Saturday per month, now until December. Visit kingcounty.gov/ABCD for more information. Again, that's kingcounty.gov/ABCD for free dental clinics for kids.
Greetings. This is your host, DJ Neftali, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the best DJ in the Seattle area. You can catch me every Monday at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Like I said, this is DJ Neftali, the best reggae in Seattle, Washington, the best radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Come on, right?
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Người Việt Tây Bắc, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Are you in need of new or gently used clothing? Hope's Community Closet is here to help. We offer a wide range of clothing for men, women, youth, children, and infants. Join us on the fourth Saturday of each month from 12:30 to 4 at the Silent Task Force. We're giving clothing with care, community with heart. Lovely Ladies Lemonade for sale, and shop to the sound of old school soul. Any questions? Contact Alicia Kennedy, Executive Director of Women United at 206-316-7601. 206-316-7601. Come and find the perfect outfit for you and your family. We look forward to seeing you there.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenueradio.world.
Trying to figure out who was saying on the public. Who was it? Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Have a skill box. Love the deliveries on it today. You are with Juan Cotto on Rainier on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We are here with Washington State Republican Party Chair and 19th District State Legislator Jim Walsh, who's graciously joined us today. Have a conversation about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and being an elected official, and all the things that he is responsible for. As we continue the community election connection here on your community radio station, as we have had a variety of political activities, as I like to say here, we are politicking all throughout the month of October, and of course coming up here in the next couple of weeks. You're going to have the opportunity to vote, and we hope that you, number one, register to vote. Number two, take the ballot to the box yourself. I personally think that that's important. You take the ballot to the box. It was real cool when we were kids, and we used to go with our mom, and she used to go vote into the at the voting at the school, and go to the little thing and stick the pins in. And I personally feel that I really wish that still happened, that we had an opportunity to get people to go actually to the polls and vote. But we have this mail ballot here, and find your ballot, sign it, get it signed in, but most importantly, sign up to vote. And then you'll have the opportunity to, when there's something you disagree with, actually complain about it. You've actually voted for or against it, so you can go ahead and do that. We feel that that's a really important thing for people to do. And we will bring you a variety of different types of information, whether that is you can hear it, you can watch it, you can see it here at the theater, but please take part to become an educated and informed person in your community. Mr. Walsh, I was tempted to wear Herb Brooks' uniform here. I wore a version of this is a United States kind of Ryder Cup look. So I'm trying to do this, and the reason is that I was going to wear my Herb Brooks hockey jersey. If you've seen the shows, I do wear quite a bit of sports memorabilia. But then I want to have a lot of respect for you, so I want you being the chair. But number two, boy, I tell you, being a Republican, it seems in Washington State is like Herb Brooks back in 1980.
I see where you're going.
It's a tough ride for the Republicans, and I'm going to say this, and for those of you who remembered her, it is true. She used to. Christy Monarchy, who was a Microsoft attorney, she passed away, unfortunately, last year. Extremely good friend of mine, and we would get these political conversations, and sometimes she would become so frustrated with the Democratic politics. She goes, "Juan, let's go to a Republican meeting. We've got to go to the Republican meeting, and let's just go sit and listen and hear what they're saying." We know that it is a challenge here in Washington State for the Republican parties, and certainly about a decade ago there was a 1-seat difference in the Senate. Mankadinkra won that seat, and it seems like the Democrats have taken over the Senate, taken over the House, had the governorship, and a variety of candidates have gone up. When I grew up here in Washington State, and I remember Dan Evans, and I remember John Spellman. And it just seems like, Sid Morrison was a name that was very active and a good man, solid man, kind of a what we call a moderate Republican. But as the Republican Party has become more conservative, the Republicans have really struggled in the state of Washington. And I would just from your perspective, what can be done, and what do you try to do to raise the visibility of that platform to people, to get people to look at it a little differently?
Well, the majority Democrats in Olympia are helping. They're running up just about every kind of state tax there is. Obviously, the Climate Commitment Act, the carbon tax, has pushed gas and diesel prices to either the highest in the nation or near the highest in the nation. And I'm certainly getting a lot of what we call walkaway Democrats coming into the Republican Party who are just fed up with the cost of living here. We heard the chief executive at Microsoft recently kind of broke out a little bit and was critical of some of the Democrat, particularly fiscal, budget, and tax issues. No surprise. And what was going on there is he's a guy, and that's a company that largely has supported the Democrat Party in this state. So I think the pendulum has swung so far in one direction that it is, in the nature of things, it'll swing back a little bit. I don't know that the Republican Party in Washington state has necessarily gotten more conservative. I think certainly Trump is an unpopular figure politically in this state. His style, his brash style, doesn't jive with people here in Washington and the Pacific Northwest. And I think his populism, and he's more a populist really than a proper philosophical conservative. His populism scares some people.
Wait, would you please explain that? Because I understand that. I understand that. Would you explain that? Because I will say that he's a populist, and people say, "Oh, Juan, you're just mouthing off." Explain what a populist is.
Someone who really is less driven by a fixed philosophical base, and someone who basically looks for the people's voice in public policy. And that can mean either left or right in terms of political philosophy, but they're not driven by left or right. They're driven by an appeal to the greatest number of people. Populist perspectives often incorporate elements of both the left and the right. You can have a more conservative leaning populist, you can have a more progressive leaning populist, but they're not going to be driven by those philosophical groundings. They're going to be driven by what is my take on what the people want. Forget the philosophy, forget the political ideology. What do people want? And Trump is a character who's always listened to the people, and in his moments, the people have been more conservative leaning nationwide, and he's caught that. He's caught that wave. And you go back into the man's history and he'll say, I would be with the people on this issue and not with the people. If you're not with the people, you're on the wrong side of the issue. And some people in politics who are dedicated to left-wing or right-wing philosophy, they don't like to hear that. So he does things. I was having this conversation with someone recently here, a more progressive person. And one of the things about Trump that a lot of people who are his critics and don't like him or hate him don't get is he's very funny. He's very ironic. And a lot of the stuff he says is kind of, sarcastic, kind of satiric, sort of dry, dark humor. He mocks people. Now that's not great to have someone, have a beer with, but it makes him stand out from the crowd politically. And so it's been a thing. I mean, Trump has always struggled in Washington. When he ran in 2016, he did do several of his rallies here in this state, not in Seattle proper, but up north. And he tried. Since then, the last couple of campaigns he's run, he hasn't really made an issue of the Pacific Northwest. But we're asking him now in his administration to look at some projects from that populist perspective. And there's a lot going on. He's not a fan of any of the green energy, green economy stuff, and he's pulled some federal dollars out of those projects. But we're asking him to look at, there are some FEMA projects, some infrastructure kind of disaster planning infrastructure projects, particularly out on the coast. And we're talking to the administration saying, look, this is a chance for you to make a populist point. And kind of a number of the FEMA projects have been frozen. A lot of controversy around FEMA. It didn't have so much to do with the West Coast, but there were some issues in the Carolinas a few years ago where the conservatives in DC believe that FEMA was kind of weaponized by the previous administration. So they're holding a lot of FEMA projects and dollars, and they're like, it was one of Doge's first projects was look at FEMA, look at how FEMA's spending its money. And so we're hoping to get some of those projects loosened up that would favor us here on the West Coast, making the point, you guys are populists. These are populist projects. You could draw a distinction between the green energy, green economy projects you don't like and these infrastructure projects that you kind of do like, by getting these things out of that hold pattern and get them funded. And we've had pretty good reception from the administration on that. So you find your places, is my point. You find the places where you can appeal to their populist rudder and say, look, do this, don't do that.
One of the things that we discuss here on Rainier Avenue Radio quite frequently is, and especially with Tony B's focus, is the impression that certain public policies have within the Black community.
Sure.
And we've had conversations around DEI and some of these other things. And growing up, and that was the great thing about growing up in a school at Western Oregon, in the middle of Central Oregon, where I had never seen grass seed farmers before. and I grew up in I'm going to college in a radically different environment than being a city boy up here in Seattle with a father working at Boeing. And it was really a complete understanding through conversation. And through seeing things through various perspectives. I understand the arguments because I've had conversations over many decades with people about DEI. My question to you, though, around the Black community in particular, is the Republican Party, and you can tell me, nationwide it might be a little bit different, but here in Washington, I remember growing up and we had several Black Republicans here in this Southeast Seattle area, and they ran for the state legislature. I remember when I was a campaigner for Patty Murray, and it was up at Jefferson Park Golf Course, and the guy came and I saw your girl won, so Patty Murray, something young, something new, and it was a really good conversation with them. In regards to, their more conservative view. It seems like over the last 3 decades, at least here in the Seattle area, and maybe nationally, and for a variety of different reasons, the African American community has become less close to the Republican Party, and I'm trying to come up with a word. You have to remember when I was growing up, I remember Jackie Robinson saying that he was a member of the Republican Party, and he really speak to that platform. I've always felt that also the platform of the Republican Party, if you think about it, strong families, a commitment to religion. You're speaking to core key values of Blacks and Latinos in particular. And I'm just wondering, why hasn't those messages caught on with Blacks and communities of color as much as the Democrats have been able to connect with those?
Well,
or the perception.
Yeah, and I think the premise is wrong. I think Trump has done very well, particularly among young Black men, have voted in 2024, voted in strong numbers for Trump. And that was, there were Democrats who were angry about that. They felt that Kamala Harris was owed those votes. And it's like, now these younger Black men like Trump. They like his style. They like his assertiveness, his New York style. And you're seeing that some in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination. The response, particularly of young Black men and women too, to Kirk has been extremely positive. A couple of the pro sports leagues, the players insisted on recognizing Kirk. And that was a bit of shock to people. But again, I think to the issues you raised, this Kirk was a public figure who spoke about religious faith in a way that many of our people under 30 aren't used to hearing people talk about so openly and transparently. And I think there is a great hunger in all people, but I would say a great hunger among young Black men for, give it to me straight, BS. There's so much rhetoric and cant. Tell me the truth about what's going on. Tell me the truth about what my neighborhood's going to be like. Tell me the truth about how to get a job and live a life and marry someone and raise some kids. Give me the path. Don't give me a bunch of rhetoric.
Well, and also, to be able to build a business. I mean,
Sure.
And to do the things that, and I feel that as I've gotten older, and usually the older you get, the more conservative you get, right? And the ability to think about, I've been teaching my son, hey, something, I'm going to be incredibly proud of you. God, and get a good job, and he wants to work in engineering, but I'd love to see you go out and start something. If you start something in the basement with your buddy Caleb, I'm going to support you on that. Go build something and build some freedom and some equity for yourself. But those seem to be core tenets that the Republicans have been pushing, but I just don't know that these communities have been able to feel that.
Well, I mean, this gets back to issues here locally that are not sexy. I mean, we're talking tax policy issues. Just in October 1st of this year, there was a new wave of sales taxes that have taken effect here in Washington State out of Olympia that were targeted at sort of business to business sales transactions. So these taxes aren't going to show up at your Safeway or whatever. They're very B2B, business to business. They target particularly smaller tech companies that contract with the bigger tech companies. And there's a lot of concern that this is going to knock out a generation of tech entrepreneurs who, the sales tax is going to make a difference to their bottom line. They're going to go to Post Falls, Idaho, or to Western Oregon down, I don't know, Bend or something, and do their, the tech industry can be anywhere, right? And so they're going to go somewhere else and contract with the Amazons, with the Microsoft, with the giants. And we're going to lose that entrepreneurial level of more startup, specialized tech companies, maybe that develop an app or develop a particular algorithm for something. They're not going to be in Washington. They're going to be in other places, and that's bad.
He is Jim Walsh. He is the chair of the Washington State Republican Party. He's also a state legislator in the 19th Legislative District. He's explained it a couple times. I still don't know how he has the ability to juggle 7 balls like that, but he somehow does it. He does both of those jobs, and like I said, I can only imagine what his texts, his emails. I know there's a lot of people who probably he gets a lot of opinions from, and he's come today to share some of those on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And we are coming up on the election. It's no longer election season. We're at the tail end of that. We are politicking here on Rainier Avenue Radio. We're politicking here in Southeast and Central Seattle. We got a District 2 City Council race. We've got an at-large City Council race. We have a City Attorney race. And then we have a race for mayor, which is getting a lot of publicity as that finish line is starting to get close. And we have Katie Wilson and Bruce Harrell striding powerfully, both of them, down towards the finish line. So if you want to find information on these candidates, and most importantly, if you want to register to vote, please, we have information on the website, www.rainieravenueradio.world, where you can find out how to make sure that you are participating in the electoral process here in your community. Tell us, what are your prospects? What are your prospects coming up? You are constantly mentioned as a potential candidate for governor. Carrying the title of both, I'm sure, puts you in that conversation. You've been out and about the state. You've been looking at these different things. Would you consider that if the opportunity was right?
Well, sure. I mean, we need to change, I believe, the direction of the state. Again, this is not grand philosophical issues. It's simple stuff: tax policy, roads and bridge maintenance, schools. We haven't talked much about schools, Juan. I mean, we need to revitalize our public school system in this state. The numbers, performance metrics are down. A talking point I've been using lately is Mississippi now outperforms Washington in terms of their public school performance metrics. We got to get our act together and get the schools straightened out. So these are simple issues, and I don't think they need to be necessarily partisan issues. And we've lost our way a little bit in Olympia in that we have made partisan some of these lunch bucket, simple stuff, issues that we ought to agree government should be able to do effectively. So we need to change a lot. The metric for getting a governor elected as a conservative or a Republican in this state is 38% in King County. So you don't have to win King County. You just have to be competitive. 38, maybe 40%. And then a increase in voter turnout in the other 38 counties, about 8 or 10%. If we could manage that, then a Republican candidate for any statewide, governor, state attorney general, commissioner of public lands, could be competitive. Right now, Republican candidates have been averaging in the mid-20s in King County. So we need to bump that up. And I think the way we do that is by speaking plain truth about how we can make Olympia work better and try to direct the conversation away from DC, away from president, away from the stuff back there, and focus on our sort of home knitting here in Washington.
You all are down in Aberdeen. You know, I went to school in Monmouth, Oregon. You know, I feel like I have an understanding of some of the rural mindset. Like, there's such a small place; it's out in the middle of nowhere. Aberdeen certainly is not out in the middle of nowhere. There's a large body of water just west of there, which is very influential. But the city itself, and you've seen all the challenges. When you guys turn on the news and you look over at this urban oasis of what Seattle has become, do you guys just sit there and go, "What the heck is going on?" And when you see this mayoral election, and you have, and one of the things, you know, I compliment Shama Sawant, I compliment Katie Wilson. They don't run from it. They don't sit there and, or are you a socialist? Well, Juan, well, I kind of have a print. No, they're like, we're socialists.
Yeah.
And then you have a mayor who has been, he's been effective at cleaning up some of the downtown core, which was a major issue 4 years ago. But he's also, a very well educated former football player, an attorney. And he's sitting back and he's like, "What is going on here?" I'm just kidding.
I mean, he ought to be, in my opinion, Harrell ought to be running in the center lane more clearly. He's trying to tack a little bit left to fight Wilson on her turf. And as a former football player, he ought to know you don't play your opponent on their side of the field. You try to bring your opponent to your side of the field.
Well, why is that so different? I've had so many conversations with some of these folks, and I tell them, you're kind of leaning, you're trying to be a leftist. Just get in there and say what you are. Just be you.
Authenticity, Juan. That we talk about young men. We talk about populist politics. Authenticity, I think, is what people want to see. It's like, I don't have to agree with you on every point, but tell me the truth about what's going on. And certainly that's been my approach in my district, which is, you may not agree with me on everything, every vote I take and every position I have in Olympia, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you what this means and what I see happening down the road if we do this or this or this. I'm going to tell you the truth as I know it. I'm going to be straight. And I think that's what's lacking in a lot of these races. It's rhetoric, it's positioning. I'll say it, Juan, it's consultants who are telling the candidates how to position themselves. And I don't think the consultants, whether they're left or right or whatever they are healthy. I think they get in the way of direct, honest communication between elected officials, public servants, not leaders. I don't like that term, leader. Public servants and their constituents. And I think what we're seeing in the mayoral race, frankly, and what I would call, in my opinion, Wilson has run a more disciplined messaging campaign than Harrell has. He's kind of floundering. And you're right, he ought to have the middle all to himself. And if he would just say that's who he is in a plain, honest, straightforward way, I think he would be ahead by double digits. But he hasn't. And he had this crazy excerpt from one of the recent forums where he's talking about how he wouldn't want a 6-time felon to go to jail. Come on, felon. What? I understand what he's trying to say, but man, that's
the one where he said he also was going to hug the felon or the hug person's been, and I'm kind of like, no.
Well, sure, whatever. Love the sinner, hate the sin, whatever you want to call it, but you're the mayor, Mr. Mayor. You've got to keep civil order.
What from you being chair, what's the biggest misconception you see people have with the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, that we're for elite, corporate hegemony. In this state, we don't have the big corporations. In this state, the other guys are the corporate representatives. In this state, we're the small business guys, and we're the homeowners and the small business people and the kind of blue collar workers. I mean, it's very interesting to see labor in our state, Juan, and we could do a whole hour just on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the actual trade unions, the plumbers, the electricians, down in my neck of the woods, the longshoremen and the pulp and paper workers, the rank and file blue collar lunch bucket labor, fairly conservative these days, and they tend to vote our way. Now, the leadership at the state level, the State Labor Council, very connected to the Democrat Party. And there's a schism there that I think is ultimately healthy. Some of them may not like it too much, but I think it is healthy, and I think it will revitalize traditional notions of Republican and Democrat. I mean, Republicans in Washington State are the blue-collar party. We represent working people. And you can get angry about that if you want, but it's where we are right now.
You have 90 seconds. I'm going to open the floor up to you. If I put you right here in the beautiful southeast Seattle area, right here, and then we have a number of different, and we talk about our diverse makeup, which is radically changing, by the way, with all these people moving over here. But that's a whole completely different story.
It's too nice, right?
But I want, so you get up and I give you a bullhorn and you say, this is why you should consider voting Republican.
Because we'll tell you the truth. We're going to simplify what Olympia does, and we're going to cut taxes. Our taxes are too high. I mean, this is an old story, Juan. Mm-hmm. Taxes are too high in this state, whether it's gas and diesel taxes, whether it's property tax if you own your home, whether it's these business taxes we were talking about. We've raised taxes so high, we're starting to kill the goose that lays the golden egg for us, and we don't want to do that. So this is not corporate apologist stuff. Most of the corporations are on the left here. This is common sense stuff. We want to make things simpler, easier to understand, easier to do, more straightforward, and more effective. We want the roads and bridges to be well maintained. We want the schools to give a 12th grader enough that he or she doesn't need to go to college if they choose not to. They can become one of those skilled trade people we talk about. We want to make a 12th grade high school diploma mean you can live your whole life. You can do your taxes, you can read a ballot, you can do everything you need to do as a citizen and a community member, and do what you choose to do. We want to get back to that small L libertarian kind of make the system work in a generally fair and transparent way, and then let people decide how they're going to live.
Telling the truth, making it simple, and cutting your taxes on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Chairman Walsh, Representative Walsh, I just want to say on behalf of Tony B and Daniel, myself, thank you so much for coming by. We appreciate it. We want to provide as many different viewpoints as possible. We think that's important in terms of our public conversation, our public discourse. We think that having you here is something that our community needs to see, and giving us an opportunity to not only hear these things, but to get them in an opportunity where they can think about them. And if people want to reach out and get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Well, I'm all over social media. You can just look up Jim Walsh on Facebook or X.
He's not lying. He's telling the truth on that one. He's everywhere.
The Republican Party is wagop.org. WA. There's information there about initiatives, about tax policy, all that stuff is there.
Thank you so much for your time and coming by and visiting us today.
Good to talk to you, Juan. Really good.
I'll pick in on your community radio. Daniel Bellis.